You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken Tech for your ears.
You'd think, if you were just looking at the sentiment data right now, that the American consumer was completely broke and just terrified about the future.
Oh, absolutely. The surveys look incredibly bleak.
Right. But then, if you look at their actual credit card statements, they are buying first-class tickets and booking luxury hotels like the world is ending tomorrow.
It's a massive contradiction. The behavioral data on the ground is just completely divorcing itself from the economic sentiment surveys we've relied on for decades.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because trying to navigate the current digital and economic landscape feels like, it's like trying to read a map where all the roads are suddenly moving.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
So welcome to your personalized deep dive. If you're a learner who loves figuring out the underlying mechanics of all this, you are in the right place. We've been poring over a stack of curated insights from TLDR Marketing, looking specifically at their data for May 2026.
And our mission today is to figure out how you actually plan for the future when all the old metrics are, well, kind of lying to you.
Exactly. We are going to look at these bizarre economic paradoxes, the reality of a world without traditional search engines, and what happens to knowledge workers when AI does the actual mechanical work.
Because the overarching theme in these sources is that the surface level is currently extremely deceptive. You really have to look at the underlying mechanics to understand what's actually happening.
Let's start right there with that economic disconnect. People are saying they feel terrible about the economy primarily because of cumulative weight of inflation over the last few years, right?
Right.
But spending in travel, retail, and entertainment remains incredibly strong. How are businesses even supposed to interpret that?
Well, they have to start by looking at who is actually feeling the pessimism. Because the socioeconomic data points out a very specific divide.
Okay, what kind of divide?
So young Americans, specifically those aged 15 to 34, are uniquely pessimistic about the job market right now. Only 43% of them think it's a good time to find a local job.
Wow, only 43%. That feels quite low.
It's a 27-point drop since 2023. And the demographics within that are super telling. The drop is steepest among young women, the most educated, and those who aren't working full-time.
That's a huge demographic shift.
Yeah, and what makes this crucial to understand is that the U.S. is a clear global outlier here. In other advanced economies globally, younger adults remain much, much more optimistic.
I wonder, how much of that local pessimism is tied to the realization that the so-called great wealth transfer might not actually happen.
Oh, that's a huge factor.
Right, because for years we've heard about this $110 trillion cavalry coming over the hill to save millennials and Gen X as boomers pass down their wealth.
Yeah, but the data strongly suggests that relying on that sudden windfall in the short term is a complete miss.
Wait, really? A myth?
Totally. Older Americans, those 55 and older who control the vast majority of this wealth, they're simply living longer. They're spending heavily on their own longevity, healthcare, and at-home care.
Oh, I see.
And when wealth is passed on, it predominantly goes to the surviving spouse first.
So the inheritance is going toward, knee replacements and 24-hour care, not a down payment on a house for a 30-year-old.
Precisely. It's going to be a very slow, gradual transfer. So if you are a business, you're dealing with a younger demographic that feels locked out and an older demographic that is spending down their wealth.
Right. And if you just look at top-line revenue, you might think you are doing fine because money is technically still moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, businesses have to look past those sentiment surveys and focus on leading indicators.
But the sources warn about a massive blind spot here. They talk about flat customer growth masking a dying business. I don't totally get that. How does keeping your customer base stable actually kill you?
Because of what is happening underneath that flat line, let's say you look at your dashboard and your total customer count is steady.
Okay.
What you might not see is that you are actively churning your legacy, highly loyal customer, the ones who buy your premium products at full price.
Right, your best customers.
Yeah, and you are replacing them with net new customers who you acquired cheaply and who only buy discounted low-margin items.
Oh, wow. I see. So the volume is the same, but the value is completely tanking.
Exactly. The sources cite a case study where a company's retained customers fell by 18%, but their net new customers rose by 31%.
So on the surface, the base looked perfectly healthy.
Right, but the critical metric margin per customer dropped by 14%. If you aren't tracking margin per customer, You are essentially flying blind.
That is terrifying for a business owner.
It is. That specific erosion can happen 6 to 9 months before your official top-line revenue officially takes a hit.
And this blindness to underlying erosion isn't just an economic problem. From what I'm reading in these reports, businesses are making the exact same mistake right now with their digital visibility.
Oh, entirely. The digital landscape is shifting just as fast.
Like, if you just spent the last 6 months and a massive budget optimizing your website's keywords for Google, hearing the CEO of Condé Nast tell publishers to plan for near-zero search traffic is probably terrifying.
It's a profound shift in consumer behavior. AI answers are simply absorbing the queries that used to go to traditional search engines.
But I want to push back on the cultural narrative around this for a second. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, go for it.
I think we tend to treat these AI bots like they're objective oracles. We ask a question, we get an answer, and we assume the machine went out, scoured the entire internet, and brought back the definitive truth.
Right, that's a general assumption.
But the data here exposes what they call the consensus gap, and it kind of blows that assumption out of the water.
The numbers on this are staggering, honestly. When researchers looked at visibility across ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google AI overviews, they found that only 2 to 2.5% of URLs appear across all three major engines.
Hold on, barely 2% overlap. That completely changes how I thought about these tools.
It gets crazier. A staggering 91% of URLs appear in just one of them.
Wait, 91%. So if a source only shows up in one system, these aren't objective truth engines at all. They are highly opinionated librarians.
That's a great way to frame it. They are highly opinionated, and they all have completely different criteria for what books they decide to pull off the shelf for you.
Which means the information diet of someone using ChatGPT is wildly different from someone using Perplexity.
Absolutely. And the mechanics of how that librarian makes their choice are actively narrowing. Recent research reverse engineered ChatGPT's internal browsing system.
What did they find?
They discovered that a model switch made back in March actually reduced the number of cited domains per response by over 20%.
So the librarian is talking to fewer sources overall. They are narrowing the pool?
Yes. It is concentrating visibility onto fewer high-authority sources using a technique called fan-out queries.
What does a fan-out query actually mean in practice?
Instead of doing one broad search across the whole web to find an answer, the model receives your prompt and then immediately fires off 10 or more highly specific, simultaneous queries targeted strictly at domains it already trusts.
Oh, wow. So it essentially says, I'm only going to ask my 10 favorite experts about this.
Exactly.
Which means if you aren't one of the favorite experts, you just don't exist. So the old way to become a favorite expert was SEO, search engine optimization. The sources say the new playbook is AEO, answer engine optimization.
Right, AEO is the new frontier.
But I have to ask, isn't AEO just a fancy new acronym for PR? Why do we need a new term for getting people to talk about us?
Well, it's more than just traditional PR because it has to be machine readable. It's true that large language models determine your visibility based on external consensus.
Like what the wider internet says about you in the press, partnerships, and community forums?
Exactly. But companies are fundamentally misunderstanding how to execute this. They are treating AEO exactly like SEO.
Meaning they give it to the tech team?
Right. SEO has historically been a product function. You tweak your site architecture, optimize load speeds, index keywords, but AEO is a brand function.
That makes sense. The SEO team generally doesn't have the tools or the budget to generate real-world PR consensus.
No, they don't. And when you give them the AEO mandate, they inevitably resort to spammy tactics like using AI to flood Reddit or create hundreds of templated glossary pages.
And the data shows that is backfiring spectacularly right now, doesn't it?
Oh, big time. A study of over 220 sites that used AI-generated content at scale showed that over half of them lost at least 30% of their peak traffic.
30%, that's a huge hit.
Because Google and other algorithms are aggressively demoting that kind of volume play. They are heavily favoring real authorship instead.
So they want full author names and platform history to ensure a human is actually willing to put their reputation on the line.
Exactly. But if you want actionable steps from these sources to actually improve your AEO, the first thing you should do is the incognito Claude audit.
I love this one. It's so practical.
It really is. Right now, 40% of B2B sites lack basic homepage schema.
Wait, what actually is a homepage schema in this context? Are we talking about the literal code structure of the site?
Yes. Think of schema as a highly structured, behind-the-scenes name tag that speaks directly to a bot.
Okay, so it's not for human eyes at all.
Right. It explicitly tells the AI, here is our company name, here is our core product, here is our parent organization. Without it, the AI has to guess based on your marketing copy, which is often pretty vague.
And if you lack that schema, you are essentially blocking the LLM from understanding what you actually do.
Yep. You can test this today. Open an incognito quad chat and ask it to evaluate your company using only public data. You will quickly see exactly what it misunderstands.
That's a brilliant test. And if you do fix your schema and start getting good, authoritative PR, how long does it take for the opinionated librarian to actually notice you?
Well, the median time to get cited in ChatGPT or Claude after publishing new high-quality content is about 6.8 days.
No, that's much faster than old school SEO.
It is. 90% of pages that get cited do so within 37 days. The takeaway is that if you aren't being seen after a month, you likely have a technical crawlability issue, not a timing issue.
There's another technical audit mentioned in the sources that I think is critical to clarify, especially for anyone selling online. The data integrity audit.
Ah, yes. The webhook issue.
Right. The report mentions that checkout success screens are often lying to businesses because of webhook fails. This sounds pretty technical. What is actually happening there?
Let's use a restaurant analogy. The front-end checkout screen, where the customer enters their credit card, is the cashier at the front of the restaurant.
Okay, that makes sense.
The webhook is the cashier sending the order ticket back to the kitchen, which is your back-end database.
Okay, following.
Sometimes the customer pays, and the cashier says, "Thank you, order confirmed." But the system drops the ticket before it reaches the kitchen.
Oh no. So the customer was charged, your dashboard shows a successful sale, but your internal database never unlocks the software or ships the product because it didn't get the memo.
Exactly. You can't just trust the surface dashboard. You have to use structured prompts to routinely verify that the back-end database is actually writing the updates.
It all circles back to looking beneath the surface, and the sources make a vital distinction here regarding AI visibility. Dynamic versus parametric?
Yes, this is a crucial distinction.
Dynamic visibility is what happens during a real-time web search, but that relies almost entirely on parametric visibility, which is what the AI already learned in its underlying training data.
Right. If your brand doesn't exist in the real world, like if people aren't talking about you, the AI simply won't pull your book off the shelf.
Which forces us to look at the work itself. Because AI isn't just changing how people find your business, it is fundamentally changing the mechanics of how knowledge workers actually do their jobs.
We're moving way past a simple chatbot interface where you ask a question and get a paragraph back.
Totally. We are entering the era of orchestration. The sources highlight tools like Perplexity Computer, which automates multi-step workflows end-to-end.
It's wild what it can do.
Right. You don't just ask it a question, you tell it to go pull trends from Reddit, generate 5 marketing hooks based on those trends, and automatically sync the output into your team's Notion workspace every morning at 8 a.m.
Or tools like OpenClaw, which treats your entire email inbox as untrusted input.
Wait, how does that work?
It automatically reads, classifies, and summarizes the emails, routing only the highly vital messages directly to your Slack.
That sounds amazing, but it forces a real philosophical reckoning. If the AI is pulling the trends, writing the hooks, and classifying the emails, what is the human actually getting paid for?
Exactly. What is our worth in that scenario? The sources apply the philosopher Walter Benjamin to this dilemma.
Oh, the mechanical reproduction guy, right.
Yes. He wrote about the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, specifically how the invention of photography fundamentally changed the value of a painted portrait.
Because suddenly capturing a perfect likeness was cheap and instant.
Exactly. And AI is doing the exact same thing to knowledge work today. It is completely collapsing the scarcity of the artifact.
So a comprehensive consulting deck, a medical data analysis, a first draft legal brief, these artifacts used to take weeks of human labor.
But now they can be produced instantly, which creates what we call a barbell effect.
Imagine a physical barbell. The middle section, the actual creation and typing of the document, is thin and holds very little value now.
Right. All the heavy value concentrates on the two extreme ends. Strategy before the artifact is created, and judgment accountability, and provenance after it is created.
It's somewhat like the sheepskin effect in economics, right? Where having the literal credential or degree suddenly matters far more than marginal improvements in your actual day-to-day skills.
That's a great parallel because at the end of the day, a machine cannot take the blame, it cannot go to jail, it cannot be fired, and it cannot stake its professional reputation on a decision.
So what does this all mean? Well, the sources highlight an incredible A/B test study to prove just how much we still require human judgment.
Oh, the results of that study are very telling. Across almost 1,400 guesses about how a specific A/B test would perform, individual humans were incredibly bad at predicting the outcomes.
Yeah, 56% of the guesses were too high.
But here is the fascinating part. Having 10 years of experience in the industry didn't make an individual's guess much better. The individual expert couldn't reliably beat the baseline.
That is humbling. So what did work?
Crowdsourcing the judgment, putting together a small group of 5 people who were familiar with similar tests, dropped the error rate significantly.
So we still need humans to evaluate the machine's output, but we need them working collectively to verify it.
And businesses are discovering the hard way that you can't just cut that human judgment out of the loop.
Yeah, that stat in the report was brutal. 80% of companies that recently cut jobs specifically to replace those workers with AI saw absolutely zero improvement in their financial returns.
None.
Yeah.
Zero. They saved on the middle of the barbell, the production, but they lost the accountability and judgment on the ends.
It goes back to your Walter Benjamin point. When photography was invented and it replaced the mechanical need for portrait painters, the painters didn't just give up.
Right, they had to adapt.
They had to invent impressionism. They had to create something emotional and subjective that a machine simply couldn't capture.
That is such a good analogy for this.
If an AI writes a legal brief for pennies, the lawyer isn't being paid to sit at a keyboard and type anymore. They're being paid to read it, apply their localized judgment, and take the immense professional risk of signing their actual name to it.
Which leads us to the ultimate question for brands and creators right now. If human connection, trust, and provenance are the only high-value premiums left in an automated world, how do you systematically build that trust?
Well, you definitely can't rent it anymore. The days of buying cheap attention on a social feed are ending.
Yeah, ad costs are just too high and algorithms are too fickle.
You have to own the community. The sources point out that Meta is aggressively shifting Facebook away from personal connection and much more toward pure passive entertainment.
People are scrolling reels from strangers, not reading updates from friends. If you want loyalty, you must build your own ecosystem.
The entertainment sector is actually leading the way on this. The sources point to the comedy show, I Think You Should Leave.
It's a perfect case study. That show didn't rely on broad, traditional promotional billboards to find its audience.
No, it built a massive, self-sustaining distribution engine. It has a 363,000-member subreddit. They created an entire ecosystem of memes.
They took highly specific, emotionally relatable, often bizarre content and turned it into social currency.
Fans use those quotes in their everyday text threads. The community literally does the marketing for them.
And professional platforms are watching this happen and realizing they need to adapt. Internal documents reveal that LinkedIn is launching paid-for events.
Wait, paid events on LinkedIn?
Yeah. They are starting small with 50 creators, but the ambition is to host up to 4,000 paid events annually.
That's a huge shift for them.
They recognize that real creators want to monetize deeply engaged, niche, gated communities rather than just broadcasting into a noisy, passive feed.
But you don't build that kind of deep loyalty just by throwing up a paywall and saying, join my community. It requires psychology.
Absolutely. The sources detail a very specific 6-email post-purchase sequence designed to turn a one-time buyer into a true community member.
And the mechanics of why it works are fascinating. It's a very deliberate cadence. Day 1 is the welcome email, obviously, giving them their access details.
Right, pretty standard.
Day 2 is a quick tip, giving them an immediate small win. But Day 4 is where it gets really smart.
Oh, the Day 4 email is crucial.
On Day 4, you send an email directly addressing the biggest challenge users face with your product. Why? Because by Day 4, the initial dopamine hit of buying the shiny new thing has worn off.
They're hitting their first roadblock, and you are anticipating their frustration before they quit. You are showing empathy at the exact moment they need it.
Exactly. Then, Day 6 highlights an underrated feature they probably missed. Day 8 is a survey asking for their feedback, which triggers a sense of reciprocity and makes them feel heard.
And finally, around day 13, you send the bridge email introducing your next offer. It's not just a list of emails. It's a psychological pathway from transaction to trust.
What's fascinating here is the demographic that is driving this demand for both automation and genuine connection. You only need to look at the recent Snap Inc. data on teenagers.
Oh, Gen Z, specifically ages 13 to 18, embodies this entirely new standard.
How so?
Yeah.
Because we usually think of them as just glued to their screens.
Well, they're not passive consumers. 74% of younger teens are actively creating weekly content.
74%, that's almost everyone.
Yeah. They're generally optimistic about AI. They view it as a highly practical tool to get things done faster. But, and this is the critical part, they are deeply protective of their offline balance.
So they want the best of both worlds.
Exactly. They demand that a brand deliver fast-paced, algorithmically driven trend relevance, but they absolutely demand genuine, real-world value alongside it. If you only offer the automated trend without the human trust, they will abandon you.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. For you, the listener, trying to navigate this shifting landscape, we've moved from the macroeconomic paradox of a consumer who is deeply pessimistic but still spending heavily,
We explored the consensus gap and the death of traditional search.
breaking down why AEO is a brand function that requires real-world PR and technical schema, not just keyword stuffing. We talked about the barbell effect in knowledge work, where the middle falls out and accountability becomes the premium.
And finally, the psychology of building an own community.
It's a lot to process, but I think it gives a really clear roadmap for where things are headed.
I agree, but I want to leave you with a final thought that builds on that concept of Walter Benjamin and the era of mechanical reproduction.
Okay, I'm ready. Lay it on me.
If AI systems are eventually going to handle all the research, all the drafting, all the workflow routing, and if the only things left for humans to provide are judgment, community, and accountability,
Right.
then perhaps the most valuable technical skill of the 2030s won't be coding. It might not even be the ability to write a great AI prompt.
What do you think the ultimate skill will be?
Simply put, taste. In a world where a machine can generate literally anything instantly and for free, having the deeply human taste to know what is actually good, what is true, and what will emotionally resonate with another human being, that might become the ultimate luxury asset.
Taste as the ultimate luxury asset. I think that perfectly sums it up. Your digital instruments might be able to generate a million different paths forward in a fraction of a second, but it takes human taste and human judgment to look at the map and realize which path is actually worth taking.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep trusting your own judgment and keep questioning the consensus.
Spoken Tech, for your ears.